doing it quickly because I didn't have anyone backing me for school. I didn't, have any of those things. I was working as a full-time bartender part-time at the bank to make sure that I could afford to do something. And then it was, okay, I got this. I want to make 6 figures by the time I'm 25.
Hi and welcome to the first episode of Hess Show. And my today's guest is Macie Mata. She's a successful businesswoman, a business coach, an investor, and she's successful with her portfolio of investments in startups and real estate and etc. We're going to find out about her story and how she started from the bottom and climbed her way up to her success and where she is right now. We're going to get into her story, her life story. We're going to get some advice, some tips, and much more. So with no further ado, let's get started with the interview. And don't forget to like this video, subscribe, and turn on that notification for more videos to come. Let's do it. Welcome, Macie, to the first episode of Hess Show.
I'm excited. Thank you for having me.
No problem. I'm glad that your assistant reached out and found me, and I'm glad that we got in contact and made this happen.
I know, right? From all the way across the water.
Oh yeah, it's a lot of hours differences here.
Mm-hmm.
So this is Hess Show. This is the first episode, and unlike the other shows that I do through my network and everything, this is very relaxed and very open, let's say, discussion, and let's call it informal. And when I decided to run my own show, I always wanted to run my own show, and when I decided to do that, I didn't know what to talk about. How can you moderate an open discussion? And yesterday and today I was doing a lot of thinking, and I decided to talk around the topic of getting started. And you know why, Macie, I picked this topic?
Why?
This is because I believe there are the majority of people that they want to follow their dreams, they get stuck at getting started. And
they do. It's really interesting because as you meet people, that you get a lot of questions around getting started or just immediate processes to incorporate into your daily life, to reach these levels of success. And I think it's nice to take us back. Sometimes they say if you're going to start coaching, think about the things that you were doing 2 years ago that you now know, and teach that to those people. So it's an exciting thing. It's also something that sometimes we forget our own rituals, and we have to jump back into to resettle ourselves and just rebalance everything as it gets crazy.
That's 100% true what you said. And what I want to share in this show is to share stories of people that managed to get started, managed to pass the bridge to the other side, and now we look back to the people that want to get started and where they are where we were before, to first of all tell them that anyone can do it. It's not like a rocket science, or it's not like something that you're born with, and maybe give them an advice or two that could relate to their life and that could save them a lot of time and a lot of energy.
Yeah, absolutely.
So before we get started, can you please introduce yourself? Who is Macie Mata, if I'm right?
Yeah, so I would say the core of everything I do right now is I'm an investor. I like to call myself an active investor. I manage a small portfolio of real estate that focuses on workforce housing, so really making a community impact there, some franchise investing, and then some startup investing. The core mission is always that impact or investing in underserviced people or underserviced communities, right? Things along those lines. So I do a lot of sourcing companies that are built by women and working with female-led teams. It just keeps me excited to see all that momentum there. But yeah, I definitely, this is not where I am now, is not at all where I started. So this is going to be a fun conversation.
I'll, definitely it's going to be fun. And let me ask you this: were you born an investor?
I wish, right? I was born into a single parent household, very, very poor. We lived in government housing. I think once I graduated high school, my mom had, she was a very hard worker, but that's the thing is she worked. She was very much so that cookie cutter old school, go 9 to 5, work overtime if you get offered it. She did build us up to like a middle class place. So when I graduated high school, I had seen all these different levels of life, from the very bottom in government housing, free lunches, like our power would go out and she would light candles, and we call them picnics in the living room. We had no idea our power was out. But looking back on it now, I'm like, how is she not crying her eyes out with two little kids eating frozen pizza or ramen noodles on the floor with no power, right? So I have seen all the levels of life and what can be thrown at you.
Mhm.
And I wasn't, I wasn't born into as many opportunities, immediate opportunities. I had to go create those for myself.
Right, right. And respect to your mother to be so strong and single-handedly raised. Do you have any brothers or sisters?
I do. So I grew up primarily with one brother. His dad passed away actually while my mom was pregnant. So then she was widowed, and it was the three of us. My grandma played a big role in our upbringing as well. And then when I was 11, I met my dad for the first time, and I've got three siblings on that side.
All
So
right.
two sisters, two brothers total. Big family.
And where are you originally? Where's your family from? I guess you were born in U.S., but
Yeah,
where's
I was
your
born in the
family?
US.
Mhm.
As far as my ethnicity goes, I'm half Vietnamese. My dad is Vietnamese, and then my mom is Irish. So Irish, red hair, pale skin, freckles. Um, and I look more Italian or Hispanic. So here we
Mhm.
are, right? But I grew up outside of Chicago. My
Mhm.
dad lived in New Orleans until I was about 18. That side of the family is now in Canada. So yeah, I was in the Midwest. I would travel every now and then to go see my dad, but majority of my upbringing was, I like to say, in the middle of a cornfield, but close enough to Chicago that once we got our licenses, we could see what dreams were made of. I'm like, oh my God, there's buildings and all
Wow.
kinds of stuff going on, right? So it really fueled my fire. Um, I think that when you're made for bigger things, you always have that inside of you, and feeling out of place where you're growing up, or the urge to want to get away and do bigger things. It was great to drive to Chicago and see, like, I'm not crazy. There are bigger things. There
There are
are
bigger
much
things
larger
around.
things outside of where I'm living.
Hmm. And um, let's say, how old were you that you decided to, you know, do something in your life and, go towards your success?
I think when I was 8, I convinced my mom that I had enough money from my allowance that I could afford 2 hamsters, and I started breeding them and then riding my bike to the pet shop and selling them for cash. Um, my hamsters, I bred too early, the second or third round, and my then mom hamster went a little crazy with the baby. So my mom shut down my hamster mill when I was like 8. But I've always had that hustler gene, and I
Mhm.
think one thing for me is that because we started at the bottom, because it wasn't there, I only saw opportunities. I didn't necessarily see failure. I couldn't go backwards in anything that I was doing. So allowing yourself permission to fail is a huge part of this entire process. If my business partner that I do the real estate with, if she was on this call, she would tell you the amount of nights that we would stay up whiteboarding on different things. I mean, at one point we were sourcing okra and selling it to the grocery stores here, and like different things that were just like in the moment cash, not sustainable companies that we would
Mhm.
eventually be like, a huge empire for. But giving yourself permission to fail. And I didn't see failure. I was very ambitious from the beginning, very
Mhm.
young age. I was always intrigued with numbers, so I would keep a little notebook with all my allowance, and it's like, when I get here is when I can buy this, when I can start. And I always wanted, I'm like, what's the easiest way for me to do this, right?
Mhm.
Through making things and selling it, or if it was mowing lawns, or who knows, right? Breeding
Are you
hamsters.
still doing that? Are you still keeping a notebook with you? Going places?
Well,
I do
now you
this.
want to know the issue is now it's all electronic, right? So
Right.
I have it on my computer. My computer crashed last week, so it's like someone took fire to my notebook, and I'm like,
Oh no.
ah, which is fine.
So Macy, obviously when you were younger and before you got started in your journey, you had dreams and desires and goals. Um, Before you got started, what was your goal, and is that goal aligning to your current goal? Are you changed, or are you still on the same path? Mhm.
I'd say your goals should pivot as often as necessary, right? Like as an entrepreneur, your journey, even one company will pivot multiple times to reach that level of success. So, don't be too hard on yourself and like setting like one goal and like, oh my gosh, I'm not there, or I moved a little bit, or this and that. The goal can still be the same as far as the larger life that you want to live and the impact that you want to have on the community. But if it's about making money, you can make money anyway. Pick your poison,
Mhm.
right? So I think for me, I operated in survival mode for a really, really long time. And so, of course, all of my first initial goals were financial because I had never had any type of financial backing in my upbringing. It was always like, okay, can we afford a uniform, or can we afford school pictures or things like that? And so I went to college for one semester. I realized quickly that I needed to get a job. I also didn't feel stimulated sitting in classes.
Mhm.
Um, so I started interviewing, got my first job at Wells Fargo when I was 19. Once I got my first sales bonus, I dropped out of school. And that's when it was like, um, here come these financial goals. And it was like,
How
okay, I'm
much
going to
was that
make
sales bonus? Do
that
you
sales
remember?
bonus was probably like $2,000.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. So it maybe so it's like and we would do quarterly at the time. I started as a teller, so very bottom of the barrel. And I was like, oh, 2 grand in 3 months. Okay, I can do this. I'm like, can you guys take me full time? I wanted to, I was very I also feel like the universe placed me and aligned me with a lot of great female leaders. At the time, my first manager, like real manager in the workforce, she was just so energetic and so inspiring, very her own kind of inspirational boss. But she didn't
Mhm.
want to hold anyone back. She knew that her job was to train us up and promote us. And they would ask that if you went for a promotion, how many people on your team have you grown to the next level? And it was a big thing in Wells, which I felt kept a lot of that selfish manager mentality
Mhm.
out of the environment. But um no, that was my first
Are you
my
still in
first
touch with
bon-
her?
I am
Oh,
actually.
that's awesome.
It's so funny, and not in a way. All of my old managers throughout that journey, I feel so comfortable like sending like quick like Merry Christmas text or whatnot. It would be so fun to get them all in a room one day. But no, so my first actual goal was figure out what I want to do because I realized quickly it wasn't school, start getting into the job force and like really narrowing it down and doing it quickly because I didn't have anyone backing me for school. I didn't, have any of those things. I was working as a full-time bartender part-time at the bank to make sure that I could afford to do something. And then it was, okay, I got this. I want to make 6 figures by the time I'm 25. So a lot of my goals up until I'd say 2 years ago were very financially focused.
Hmm. I guess that is that's a shift that happened in my life as well. That my the goals in my early life was mostly financial, and
Mm-hmm.
it was all depending on the numbers that I wanted to earn. And slowly I mean we I drifted away from those kind of goals, and let's say it's more humanitarian right now goals. It's more
Mm-hmm.
like my sense of pleasure out of what I do is to see another person happier
Yeah.
from what I've done. It's this is
Yeah.
um I find it the most rewarding, let's say. So
Yeah, that's great.
let's get back to you. So you were around 19, 20, I guess, when you made those plans, or?
Yep, I was
Yep.
19 when
Mhm.
I just turned 19 when I
Just
started with Wells Fargo, and then I hit my six-figure goal at 23, and then at, I believe, 26 is when I realized I didn't want to climb the corporate ladder any longer. You know,
mhm.
the roles above me were no longer intriguing.
Let's go back to when you were 19, 20, way, because this show again is about that beginning that you had
Yeah.
that we're going to get into later on. Um, Obviously, when you want to make a change in life, there are some internal and external forces against you, and
Mm-hmm.
like the external forces could be like people, the place you're living, your environment, the
Mm-hmm.
time is external as
Yep.
well, and then you've got some internal factors like mind, body, soul, your the voice inside
Mm-hmm.
your head and all that. So you touched upon some of the external, let's say, challenges that you had, and mostly, let's say, money and the financial problems was one. Can you talk about what kind of challenges you face? Because right now, what happens is people that want to get started, they're facing these challenges, and
Mm-hmm.
these challenges are uh, the biggest murderers of dreams, let's say, because
Yeah.
they kind of draw a border around you and say, okay, you got to stay here, you can't go further because of this, and the mind comes up with excuses why you
Mm-hmm.
can't change. So what kind of challenges did you face when you were at the beginning?
I'd say the biggest challenge, and even now, like this is going to be a challenge every time you enter a new chapter in your life, or every time you're really trying to get to another level and you're not surrounding yourself with the people that really understand that. Um, so, multiple times I've had to go through outgrowing the people around me. Um, and it's hard, right? It was hard. It's still hard. You don't want to feel like you're hurting anyone's feelings, but if you know you're made for more, then you have to do it. I think the biggest thing is, imagine being a 19-year-old and you're living in a college house with two roommates, and when you first get there, of course you want to party. And then once after my semester of partying was over and I like really figured it out, I didn't have that option anymore. So that was a stage, right? And everyone will place themselves in your lives where they're supposed to be. And
Mhm.
the people that understand where you're going will still befriend you and not pressure you to do those things. But it is a really hard balance, and I feel like the people around you are the biggest distractions because there are the most emotions associated with that. I mean, I have been, I moved for every 2 years until I landed back in Charlotte this time, and I'd say the my environment never was it was it never really bothered me. It
Mhm.
didn't bother me that at one point when I got divorced, I was sleeping in my car. It didn't bother me that I had an air mattress for a year instead of a regular mattress. It didn't bother me that I had lawn furniture sitting in my living room because I went from two income streams to one when I got divorced. Different things like that. Like my at home environment didn't bother me as much. I'd say that my biggest distraction was filtering through and not feeling guilty for moving on and focusing on the things that were important
So
and allowing
you
those.
didn't let your, let's say, these kind of challenges cling on you to hold you back. You were like, okay,
Yeah.
this is what it is,
Yep.
and you accepted it.
Mm-hmm.
You had the courage
Yep.
to say that, to see it as it is, and then move on.
Yep. And
Hmm.
I am maybe I walk away too soon, right? That could be one of my flaws is that as soon as I feel like something is weighing me down or I've outgrown it, I definitely like to vocalize, how can we move into the next chapter together? Or hey guys, listen, like I don't have that time and I don't have that energy. But every single time I've made the decision to walk away, bigger opportunities present themselves. So I am very confident now with seeing it multiple times and in every single chapter that I've been in that, if it's not made for you, you do have to let it go and you can't dwell on it. You just got to keep pushing forward.
That's very true. I couldn't put that in such a nice flow that you put it. Yeah. And I'm really I really respect what you've done and how you overcome those challenges and how courageous you were.
Thank
So,
you.
yeah. Um when let's say when you get started, let's say someone gets managed to get started, they overcome these challenges we just talked about and they get started. Obviously there are a lot of failures at the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, we're not taught from our childhood to deal with failures. We
Mm-hmm.
see them as like roadblocks instead of, learning lessons and all that. So let's say you got started, you were going through failures and all that. Then you had that aha moment. You had your epiphany. What was that aha moment and how did it happen? Just do you have that kind of moment in life which after that you're like, okay, now things are working. It's going
Yeah.
well now.
So I'd say when I switched from being in corporate America to being an entrepreneur, um, and I had a team, right? And I had teams in Wells Fargo. I mean, I had a great career there for 9 years. I had managed multiple teams. I came in and took underperforming teams and we were performing, right? Like, but the difference in a startup of we're if this fails, we all fail, and I'm their leader, right? There's no giant company backing us. We're not going to get a paycheck every 2 weeks. Like this is what it is. um your thought process has to be solution based. There isn't These aren't roadblocks. There are only solutions. And there would be times that I would be stressing out, like, oh my gosh, this happened and now I have to tell the team. And making sure that you're surrounded with people that are also solutionists. We would get on these calls and they're like, well, how about this? How about this? How about this? And I'm like, well, now we have 5 options of how we could pivot or proceed. Right. So
Exactly.
I think that's when my mindset, when I was really challenged with the pressure of performing for a team so we can all win, beyond for something much larger, something that we are really throwing everything into, something that we're putting, all of our energy into because we were still working 9 to 5s at the time, right? Like different things were going on. But that's when I really had to change my thinking, right? And it's
Hmm.
only solution based thinking. And since then, I've changed it. Like I don't have problems. I will say that very confidently. Anything that comes at me, I will find a solution for. Sometimes the pressure is a bit more, but um, definitely a solution based thinking is where I would take any challenge that comes to you or anything that makes you nervous or feels like it's really applying pressure. you know just sit with it and come up with a
Hmm.
strategy. It doesn't have to be a problem.
I remember we hired someone to advise our team, and we were talking to this advisor, and every time we said the word problem, he would stop us and say, challenge. That's not a problem.
Yes.
Nothing is a problem unless you put a label of,
Mm-hmm.
you put a label on it. So after that, advising session, I rarely use the word problem. I just use challenges. And
Yep.
because when you use the terminology challenge, and not just for the sake of the word, but the way you think about it as a
Mm-hmm.
challenge, then it becomes kind of like a game. Becomes
Absolutely. It
something.
changes the entire energy in your
It changes
body.
the
It
perspective as
changes,
well. Yeah.
yep, the perspective of who you're speaking to. They're like, oh,
Mhm.
a challenge. We got this. We're
Yeah.
up for the challenge,
I already
right? Like if
challenged
you've
you.
got the right
Yeah.
people around you. So no, I agree with that. I really like that coaching style. And I
Mhm.
put that into my everyday life. Like I just don't have problems. Um there are solutions for everything.
Mhm. That's true. And what was that startup? You were part of it or you were investing in it?
So that startup, I actually founded, and it was a beauty technology startup. And what we did is we mobilized the salon. So you could, just like as you get on Uber or whatnot, you can get on there, select your service, and then all of the stylists that are willing to travel to you based off of your geolocation, or barbers in your case, um, would populate in almost a Yelp format. So you can see their star rating, their photo, reviews. You can click on their profile, and then you can select a service for them to come in home.
Hmm. That's that, and that was that successful? Did you
Oh
manage to
gosh.
grow it?
So depends on how you define success, right? Like the bigger picture that the goal and what I was manifesting in my head. And this is why I say, right, like don't get too caught up on, wow, I did this and it did okay, or it did this, but I wanted this, like
Mhm.
use that to leverage and keep going. So what we did is we launched this entire company, and within, I'd say, month 3, we were cash positive and made just too much of a splash in the North Carolina market, in the Charlotte market particularly, and we found out we were breaking the law. So yeah,
Okay.
yeah, I know. So you can't actually mobilize the cosmetology license. It needs to be attached to a salon so that the North Carolina Cosmetology Board can regulate and make sure everyone is XYZ. Now, if
Mm.
you know, I don't know about where you are, but in the States, a lot of stylists are just moving around doing what they want, and no one's regulating them if they're doing mobile services now, or if they're doing
Most people, they're
hair in
not
their
even aware of
house.
this law neither.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the North Carolina Cosmetology Board, they were advocating for us. They helped us rewrite our bill. I was driving and lobbying and doing all of this stuff. And I just realized, this isn't one, I'm not, I'm not a lobbyist. I'm not here for the political games, and that never was my passion, right? So it started to
Mhm.
really burn me out. We also were self-funded. I quit my job too early. Things were going so well that we both quit our jobs to go full force, and then boom, they were like, shut it down. So we quit our jobs too early. We're lobbying in Raleigh, North Carolina, which is about 2.5 hours from where we live. Our bill got sent back twice just for little things that they wanted to change. Everyone agreed that this was the future and it needed to be done. We built out even a dashboard
Mhm.
so the government could, monitor and incorporate new fee structures and different things like that into the beauty world. Um, and then it just got really,
Dry.
when I realized it was no longer scalable, that if I was
Mm.
going to have to do this in every single state, it took a 5-year plan at say 50 to 100 million to now a 10 or a 20-year plan. Each
Mhm.
state was going to take a few years for me to actually turn around before we could scale into it. And the amount of money that it cost to play this political game wasn't something I could afford at the time, right?
Right.
At all. So the way it worked out was actually, it was great. We had a couple from Canada that was in a fundraising boot camp class with me, and the wife reached out and she's like, "We want to build technology that's very similar to yours. We don't have any tech background. We have saved X amount of money." The first thing she did is told a salesperson her budget, and I was like, "Okay, this is good." So I started doing a discovery, and I'm like, trying to pinpoint if there was anything additional we would need to build out in our app to just sell her our technology.
Mhm.
And that's what we did. We pretty much just changed the cover of it, white labeled our technology. It wasn't something that I wanted to get into the business of white labeling and recreate, so just sold her all the rights to our technology. We did change and make a few little tweaks. They don't use it for the beauty industry, but then so we went through a technology acquisition, and it was very small. From there, we took that money. We did a few microloans with different development companies here. And I just said to my team, I'm like, look, here are some other opportunities. If we take this money and throw it in here, then we can all get a bigger payout. So we did 2 of those. And then we finally split the money through the team as it pertained to the equity.
Do you consider that your first success, like, or you had other kind of success before? The first time that you feel the time that you input finally paid off, let's say.
No,
So you,
absolutely not.
hmm,
I felt like a failure.
hmm. Why
I
why was that?
felt, what was that?
Why did you feel that way? Because you felt that you abandoned something that you
Um,
started, or
no, no, no. I just
Mhm.
felt like it wasn't until later when I settled into what was happening or what had already happened that I started to feel okay with it.
Mhm.
Um, I built my team on this much larger dream. I wanted to scale something big. I wanted to make a splash and make a change. Um,
Gotcha.
and when you do a startup like that, you put your entire heart, soul, and identity into it, right? So everyone knew myself and my founder as the founders of this company, and it was big and exciting and fun. And then, um, so it was almost like it stripped me of my identity. Um,
Mm.
and so I wasn't even thinking, and when it hit me later when I talked to another founder and I was like, we sold our technology for a few $100,000 and I just feel like such a loser. And she's like, do you want to know how many founders sell for $10,000? She goes, do you
Right.
want to know how many founders just fail?
That's
And
that's actually that's what happened to me as well. The first startup that we did with my ex-partner, we um, we managed to get so much recognition that
mhm,
people knew us through our startup. Like everyone that
yes,
knew me, that talked to me on daily basis, everything that I placed around my environment was somehow connected to that startup. And when it died out, and it died out miserably,
hmm,
it was such a great recognized success at the beginning, and then it's just failed
yeah,
so miserably at the end. I actually went to like 8 months of like finding who I am because I
yes,
didn't know who I
no.
was.
It wasn't until this year that I actually feel like all the new groundwork that I've been putting in is paying off to recreate who I am to
Mhm.
the public, right? And it's not that I even owe anyone an explanation of who I am or what I'm doing. All of my investments now, I could just cut off social media and they're all going to move. It's
Yeah.
great, right? But yeah, to your point, it strips you of your identity. And so it took me some time. My fiance, I mean, I would lay there and I would cry at night and I'm like, I'm just a loser. Like, what am I gonna do? And my fiance's like, you are crazy. He's like, something is wrong with you. Um, so I think, it's just I have a very I'm very ambitious and had bigger dreams for that
Mm.
company. And that's what I'm saying. If someone listening now can take that and cut even, you said your time was 8 months of trying to recreate this identity and all of the emotions that went into that, where it feels like a depression.
Mhm.
And if we can cut that in half and someone else only spends 4 months on it, I'm telling you, you know, what I was trying to understand was it because I was embarrassed? Was it because my name was attached to a company that was no longer there? Was it because I had this big number goal that now I had to pivot my way through? So, what I had to finally sit beside myself and realize is, to this date, now I've helped other founders raise $6.5 million. I've got 3 funding rounds going on right now. All of the things that I know now that I can help and push back into the community and do better this time with my investments, I learned through that company, through my first company
Exactly.
and my
Same here.
first startup. So
It's
it wasn't until right now that I feel like, you want to know what? Like, you are still that boss ass bitch. You have so much knowledge. You have all this stuff. And yeah, you still have this big number that you're going to hit, but you're going to hit it now with 4 or 5 different companies that you've invested in, and you've got advisory roles, or you play, a role that it's not where all this pressure is on me. It's I'm giving my best skill sets, my best advice to these
Mhm.
companies so they can learn from all my mistakes.
Again, respect to you for doing that because there are a lot of advisors out there that either they're doing it for the advisory shares to just keep that there,
Hmm.
or um, you know, I don't know, they're not passionate enough
Yeah.
to feel part of that project and then help with that, let's say, perspective.
Yeah.
Uh, so respect.
Thanks. Thanks. Yeah. Been a journey.
Yeah. So you said the question that I asked, which we got into failures, was I asked you, was that your first success? And you said no, that felt like a failure. So did you have a moment in your life that everything kind of started working out, and you like took a step back and took a deep breath and say, okay, I'm fine? Did you have that moment?
So that's again another thing that I struggle with, and I hope that other, entrepreneurs have some of the highest rates of depression and different things, and I feel like I have some type of, like, I don't step back and think, like, at the core I'm like, yes, I'm successful, yes, I'm making big girl moves, but I'm still not. Every day I'm pushing towards something way bigger. And so it's hard for me to sit here and just pat myself on the back. Do I know I'm successful? Absolutely. Would I say that's my first success? No. Even I think my first success was spending 9 years in corporate America, and really in taking the time to climb the ladder of every single role, to understand the ins and outs of not only finance, business consulting on internal financial operations and things like that, but also retail structure, goal structure,
Mhm.
management, learning and development, all of those things, and having the ability to know, hey, this is bigger than me, and extracting all of that information to then take it over and structure a company, whether it was exactly how I wanted to end or not, or how I can put it into practice today. That was my first success of extracting all of that knowledge and really working so hard, even when my feet hurt because I was wearing heels, for 12 hours a day, or, all these different things that were placed in front of me. So no, I feel like each of my chapters has been a mini success, but I'm made for even so much more than what I'm currently sitting in now. So, am I going to sit here and pat myself on the back? No.
Maybe you should. Sometimes it's not a bad idea to, to look back and say, yeah, I've done a good
Right.
job, good girl.
Yeah.
To just say that to yourself,
Yeah.
I had or still have, I'm not sure if I'm past that, but I had the same issue as well, that nothing was perfect, including anything that I did. So I just had to find another goal and then another desire to
Mhm.
replace the
Mhm.
previous one, just to keep the ball rolling. And I
Yeah.
couldn't just sit back for 2 weeks, only 2 weeks, and say, okay, I've done so much and I'm just going to take 2 weeks off. It's my reward
That's
and
so hard.
whatever. Yeah, I know. I'm
I'd
doing it
say
right now.
another.
I'm practicing right now, to
Are
be
you good?
honest.
I'm so proud
Yeah.
of you. Another best practice is when I found myself in these really low pits of, like, what is next? How do I make this money work for itself? How do I step back into my bossiness, or recreate my identity, or, like,
Mm.
all the things, the emotions. I'm not a huge journaler where I, like, actively write every day, but a really great practice that I did was I sat down and I wrote down all of the things that have happened that are successful,
Mhm.
small to large, right? And re-reviewing that, I'm like, oh, okay, you've really been out here working. Like, and that's 10 years later. I'm like, what the hell? Why am I just not doing this? But
I get
almost
that feeling.
retelling yourself, like, I don't care how you feel right now.
Mhm.
There have been lower times. There have been worse situations. There have been, you've been in different situations before and you haven't felt this down. Like, look at all that you've accomplished. So, there are practices behind that helped me a lot.
Mhm.
And I definitely don't feel that low energy any longer. I am all very high energy. I feel really good. I can say
Mhm.
confidently, yes, I'm successful. But I got some big shit to do, and
We all
I'm
do.
excited about it.
Look, I what related to what I said, what I'm practicing right now, maybe you can use it as well, is every now and then, like when I feel like things are not clicking and not working out,
Hmm.
like not like a short term issues, not like, I don't know, if I'm trying to make something and it's just every day something goes wrong, whatever, that's the signal that I take, that I need to take at least a couple of days off, maybe a week off. And like when I do that, when I take the time off at the beginning, is really hard because you worry, you stress that
Hmm.
you're missing out right now, and like work is, you're required for your work right now. You feel guilty a little bit that, what am I doing here? I need to be, you know being
Yeah.
a boss at life, let's say. But it's just temporary. If you let it pass, then the mind quiets itself, And then
Mm.
what happens is that you go through this silence and quietness. And preferably, I do these breaks on my own. I go maybe camping or nature or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
just to quiet everything. And
Mm.
when I come back, my mental speed is like tripled. My let's say problem solving skills is, 3 times better. So what
Mm-hmm.
happens is that, let's say if I took a week off, then I
Oh
get
God, the
I
anxiety of
gain
a week.
mental speed that will recover that week and put me ahead of my schedule.
Right.
Yeah, so that's
Right.
what I'm practicing, and you have to experience it for several times until you go like, oh, okay. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Oof.
that's what I need to do.
So you're doing it right now.
Yeah.
How many times have you done it, and do you still feel that? Well, mine would be straight
um
anxiety.
I didn't count, but I know when I started it. It's been half a year to a year, I would say, that I started. I'm not sure
Okay.
when I started it, but it's less than a year, I would say, that I'm
Okay.
doing that, because I'm extremely proactive. I just like, I'd like to do things, different industries, different places with different people, different teams and projects, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
Yeah. So I learned to slow that
You're
pace
so
down.
strong. I
Give
am
it a
the
try.
definition of burnout. I
I
work
am too.
seven, yeah, I work 7 days a week until it's like the third or fourth week in a row. And I'm like, I think I need a day off. And
Mm.
even I tried to take a Friday off the other day, and I was like, okay, I'm taking Friday off. This is great. And I'm sitting there drinking coffee. And after about 20 minutes, my fiance walks out and gets more coffee, and he's on a call. And it was almost like I was jealous. I'm like, oh no, I'm gonna go up to my office and I'm gonna work. And I'm like, what is wrong with me? So I feel like for me, I really have to, yes, I need to work on that.
Yeah.
And
It will take a while, but you'll manage.
yeah, and I definitely I work on self-care. I mean, I'm a huge advocate for fitness, right? And it doesn't mean that you have to, like you look the best and you're going on some crazy fitness journey to like have abs. It's the mental break of what fitness does for you.
Mhm.
So I work out 6 days a week, and I'm like, oh, this, so I'm very in line with like making sure that my diet, my fitness, what I'm putting into my body and what I'm doing with myself is aligned as far as
Mhm.
self-care goes. It's like booking a massage between my meetings, but I don't taking days off is an issue for me.
Yeah,
Like I work on vacation.
yeah, I had to work on that for big time, and I'm again aligned with exactly what you said. I care about my health and
Hmm.
especially my diet and my exercises. Um, and recently, for the past, I would say, couple of years, I've been taking care of my mind as well a lot, to
Hmm.
let's say every now and then go through a maintenance and through every
Yeah.
thought that I have and be very observative, to see what the hell is going on. It's
Right.
why am I thinking
Are
this way?
you meditating? What are you doing for your mental?
Um, I used to meditate the way that, like, traditionally, but what I do
Hmm.
right now, I replaced it is with breath work. So I do a lot of
Mm.
breath work, and then maybe after that, I do some this meditation that I don't know if I'm not sure if I saw it somewhere or if I made it up. I'm not sure, so I'm not gonna take any credit there. Um, I just sit, close my eyes, and just keep repeating. I look internally, so I feel like
Mhm.
I'm inside my body, and then I'll just keep repeating the question. What do you want to tell me, to my body? Like, what do you want to tell me? What do you want to tell me? And then it's like,
Oh, that's an
no answer,
interesting
no
one.
answer, no answer, and then, like, suddenly 1 second I know the answer, like, hey, you've been sleeping, your sleeping routine is like messed up, so fix that.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, okay, there you go.
Yeah, yeah. Sleeping has been, and I actually, it's crazy because I have never been good at sleeping.
Me neither.
I've always been crazy insomnia, but
I'm opposite. I sleep
my
a lot. That's
what
my
was that?
problem. I sleep a lot. That's my problem.
Oh, you
Like,
sleep a
I can't
lot.
control, like, I have to put like 3 4 alarms to wake up.
Wow. So
Yeah.
mine is I can't fall asleep at night. Once I'm asleep, I'm asleep. but
Mm.
so I've been doing breath work to get my mind to turn off. It also said,
Mm.
I will say that, having a partner, I've been with my fiance now for 2 years, and I have never slept more in my life.
Mm.
So like, I don't know what kind of peace he brings to me, that I don't have insomnia any longer. But on the nights where my mind is still so busy, I do a lot of breath work. I do want to try your meditation. The meditation that I do, and I've been doing a lot of just like breathing and stretching in the morning. But I want to get back into it. I used to meditate every morning, 5 minutes, just set a timer, close my eyes, and I would start with um, my current self,
Mm-hmm.
envisioning that I walk into a room and I'm having a meeting with my future self. And
That's
I
really
always would
cool.
talk to my future self all the time. We'd have a meeting every single morning. Like, all right, this is really, you do, like, I'm proud of you. This is how we're going, and sometimes I would reverse it and I would meet with my younger self, and I would
Mm.
tell my younger self. And of course, you're always, when you meet with your younger self, it's some significant place where you grew up. So mine was always at my grandma's house, and
Mm.
I meet with my younger self and just tell myself, how I'm doing and all the things. Like, it's crazy when you talk to your younger self and you're like, can you believe these are the things you're gonna do? Like, you have no idea
Mm-hmm.
that you're going to accomplish these things, or you're going to move to these places, or you're going to even see these parts of the world, right? So those are two of my really where I felt really connected, depending on where my mental space was, on where I needed to go to either push myself, propel and overachieve, or feel some gratitude and pat myself on the back for the things I've already accomplished.
That's pretty cool. I had a similar experience. Not that I planned it, but like I think it was a few weeks ago that I was talking to my old younger self, and I was
Yeah.
like, things are all right. Don't worry about it.
Right.
I tell you something. I was reading it yesterday. Do you know Joe Dispenza, the author?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I was reading his book, and part of his book is talking about brain waves. And when you
Mm.
were talking about your insomnia and your sleeping routine, I got reminded of that. That let's say he says during the day when we're awake, I might get it wrong because I just read it yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
We go through our beta wavelength, which is when you're awake.
Mm-hmm.
But when you either meditate or when you just woke up or just about to go to sleep, you go through another a wave cycle, which is a slower frequency.
Mm.
And he says that people have insomnia and they can't sleep at night because they still are operating at the beta waves, which is the
The
awake.
wake waves.
Yeah, yeah. So it says like,
Mm-hmm.
the best times that first of all to meditate is morning and, before you sleep, when you wake
Mm-hmm.
up and before you sleep. And it says like, if you want to fix your sleeping routine, then the few hours before sleep, you need to calm yourself down. You need to calm your brain
Yeah.
down. You need to meditate. You need to, drink tea or whatever. And
Mm-hmm.
have our phone all the time with us, which one of the factors that keep us awake and keep us in that beta wave frequency, let's say, is because we're constantly interacting with the phone. And I'm guilty doing that too. But
Oh yeah. Yeah. I don't have it all figured out as far as sleep goes, but I try different things. We'll see. I'm sleeping more than I ever have, so I feel really good. There are just some nights where I feel like if I'm so operational throughout the day, then I get super creative at night, and that's when I can think about, unique marketing strategies or industry gaps, or I become very obsessed. So as soon as it's like, oh, this new company, I want to research, I want to do all of the market research tonight. Right. And I'm just like zipping through it and reading all these
yes.
articles. So I'd say that's when my creative side comes out, because I feel like no one's poking at me. I have no calendar that I have to watch to make sure I'm not missing something. Um, yeah, but that makes sense. It makes all the sense that
Mhm.
you have to, turn off those daytime waves, transition to the nighttime waves.
Yeah. I mean, I'm doing better with the sleep as well. I sleep much less than I used to. which I'm pretty proud of. It's just the time. Anyway, we're talking about our sleep.
I
Um,
know.
let's say, okay, I want to know. This question just randomly came up. I didn't prepare it. I want to know a day of your life. What do you do? Like, I want our audience to know what activities you do during, let's say, a day of your life.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have 3 stepchildren that I play a very active motherly role in. They're with us full time. So I usually start, I'm a big breakfast person as well, which I want them to feel, loved and nourished in the morning as well. So I do breakfast every single morning. Meditate, check my emails while I'm doing that. And then I really rock and roll. I've got a lot of flexibility to do what I want. And so what I try to do is based on my different companies is I have structured work blocks for each day. And then I take it from there. So, today I've got a lot of startup work to do. I've got a little bit of franchise work to do. But I do block it out. And now that the world is opening back up, I've had more in-person meetings, but it really is like when I'm not out and about, it's like come up to my office and I just grind it out. I have a lot of different forms that I use to stay organized. And as I mentioned with the calendars and picking which day, I focus on different things so that my brain has time to transition. But I also do a lot of sticky noting. So you
Oh,
can see
wow.
here, like all of my sticky notes of all of my projects to really just keep me inspired. But yeah, I mean, it's pretty chaotic. We do have a nanny. She's part-time because our kids are 14 now. We've got twins, and so usually she's also a retired chef, so I don't have to worry about food until dinner because she's got it covered as far as like feeding us, different things like that. I fit in a workout every single day, so I'm big in Pilates. I'm also a big runner. We've got a dog that I take running at least 2 miles a day. Yeah, I mean, I grind all day. Like last night, I didn't turn off until maybe 11. So sometimes what I'll do is I'll stop at 4 and do family things and do my workout and then clock back in at like 8 or 9.
That's like 3 normal days combined into one. There's a lot
Yeah,
of things to do,
yeah.
and you love
There
it,
are a
don't you?
lot of things. What was that?
I said, and you love it, don't you?
Oh yeah,
Like doing that.
I love it. I love when I need a lot of things. I operate better in chaos. I mentioned that earlier. And no, I'd say that it's great. We also travel a lot, so having the ability to you know to do all of this in a remote location, that's probably why I don't. It's not like, oh, we take a vacation and everyone unplugs. My fiance also usually works as well. We're very much on the same speed. So if I'm sitting in bed working, he's like, oh, this is great. I have so much work to do. And I'm like, good. So we're usually on the same page of we've got a lot of shit to do, but it is hard to create that balance because we've got family, it takes a lot of organization. So every Sunday I have to sit down and look at our calendars, and I have an assistant that helps with my life, and then getting the nanny schedule out there and organize all of the stuff so that I can make sure that all of my time is truly maximized with whatever I'm focusing on in that moment. Um, but yeah, it's wild.
It is. So I designed this question I'm about to ask you a few hours ago, and I was really proud of it in trying it
Okay.
out. So it's, let's say, if you could, for real, send a tweet back to your old self, back when you were 18 or 19, what would you send to your old self? And when I say tweet, it's because it has limited words that you can use in it.
Right. What would I tweet
Just
myself?
one tweet.
I think that I would tweet myself that don't worry, it's always going to work out, because it has. Every single time I've been faced with a challenge that has forced me to pivot, I figure it out. And I'm a lot scrappier. I've got a lot of grit in me than I'm a lot scrappier than I give myself credit, or that I used to give myself credit. Right. So I think, maybe some of that anxiety that used to keep me up at night with that insomnia, if I could put some of that to bed by just knowing, hey, these things are going to be there in the morning. You are going to figure it out, and you're going to work hard to make sure it's executed properly. It's okay. Like, just sleep, or, don't worry.
That's kind of beautiful. Right. So let's roll back, because again, as I told you, this show, I wanted to be for people that are just starting out, and either they need a little bit of guidance or a little bit of courage or anything that is required at the beginning. Let's roll back to that phase in life. Okay. And that's my last question that I'm going to ask you. What advice would you give people that are at the stage that they're about to make the jump, but they're just too afraid?
Yeah. So first thing, don't quit your day job too early, and extract everything, the good and the bad, from that experience to take with you. If you have a bad manager, that's a great example of how you will never manage, right? Remember those moments, write it down, circle back to them, so that when you're managing, or when you're doing something, or you're faced with a problem, you can, re-remind yourself of all that you learned there. And you can extract everything. I mean, what are their interview processes look like? What's their HR structure look like? What's their sales and what's their training look like? All those types of things. So don't quit too early. And take that chapter with you. Take all of that education. The second thing is, don't hold on to relationships that you have to drag for too long. I had to break my own heart several times and step out of romantic relationships. And immediately, it was pretty immediate that I had very life-changing experiences that propelled me to the next chapter like that, and I mean, one of them was a divorce. And as soon as I got divorced is when I stepped into a promotion and I started hitting more of my goals. I'm telling you, in like 3 months. So it's definitely, sometimes it hurts, but don't hold on to relationships that aren't going to run at the same pace as you, or don't have the same, it doesn't mean they're bad people, but some people aren't made for the life that you're made for. And don't feel bad about that. So those are my 2 pieces of advice.
Awesome. And again, thank you for being on the first episode of this show. And I'm really happy that you are my first guest, because first of all, I feel like we had really awesome conversation, and the flow of it was perfect. And second of all, I think a lot of people will relate to you, and hopefully they can make the jump as well. So if you are listening or watching right now, and if you're there, just step forward.
Yep, you got this. Thank you so much for having me.
No problem. Thank you for being here. Thank you for watching this video, and if you like this video, go ahead and click on that like button, because that will help me get noticed on the YouTube algorithm, and subscribe to this channel for more videos, tutorials, interviews, and many more that will get you closer to your success and growth in life. And have a nice day.